Hi everyone, this is Tara Dawood, President of Ladies Fund, and a warm belated Eid Mubarak to all of you who've been celebrating. Thank you so much for joining us at the 5th session of the Ladies Fund Women for Solutions series of Caring Economy in partnership with the Canada-Pakistan Business Council and now ConnectHear so that it is accessible to those with hearing needs. And before we go on to our incredible speaker of today, Noha Hefry, who is doing a wonderful talk specifically on women equality in the workplace, we wanted to just welcome you all to this incredible series for women, and particularly for anyone wishing for self-improvement in these ways. We have interpretation, as you can tell already, from ConnectHear. The Ladies Fund is very excited that we are working towards more vaccinations and facilitating people in that way. We are also having a wonderful partnership with the Pakistan International Film Festival and having fellowships for home bakers. We're also working closely with the State Bank right now and facilitating loans for women up to 5 million rupees across any field for their businesses. This would be small, medium-sized businesses. And we are about to have our next power lunch. So lots going on here, all in the midst of a pandemic where we're being very careful, very socially distanced, and that's why we have these incredible virtual series. One of the best things that's happened for Ladies Fund in the longest time is the incredible friendship of Laura Koch. And Laura has, with her Women for Solutions, been not only a blessing and dear friend in my personal life, but also someone who is committed to the betterment and women helping women all over. But today we will begin next with the incredible Samir Dosal, our partner in this series and many other virtual ones, with his platform, the Canada-Pakistan Business Council. So Samir, I invite you to join me up here and share a few words. You are not only our partner, but throughout the series where there's been several power outs, several Wi-Fi issues taking place in the last.
Hello and greetings from Toronto. My name is Samir Dosal and I'm the president of the Canada-Pakistan Business Council. I'm delighted to be a part of this session as always, Sarah, as you know. I really appreciate the wonderful work that you do, part of the Dawood Global Foundation, the Ladies Fund, and so many other wonderful initiatives that you mentioned. Kudos to you, all the very, very best. I'm actually really excited to listen into this wonderful conversation, which is going to be presented by Noha Hefry, founder and CEO of People of Impact. She will be formally introduced by Laura. And Laura, it's been a pleasure connecting with you for the wonderful initiative, Women for Solution, that you've been bringing. Women empowerment means a lot to all of us, especially here in Canada as well. We like to sort of work on all those wonderful initiatives that people like yourself bring to the table. And Canada-Pakistan Business Council prides itself in being a part of this and being a part of a solution as much as we can. So it's back to you guys. All the best.
Thank you so much, Samir. We cannot thank you enough for this incredible partnership. And today we're not only, I'm addressing you from Pakistan, Samir and Karachi, Samir from Toronto, Laura from New York City, Azima and her team of ConnectHear from across Pakistan, and of course Noha is going to speak shortly, who is Egyptian and addressing us from the UAE. Now first we want to just acknowledge the amazing team of ConnectHear. Alia later is going to say a few words on behalf of that eminent organization. And we also have these wonderful interpreters today. First, the first one who's up right now is the amazing Maria Shaber. So we thank you, Maria, for being here interpreting for us right now. And Riaz will be interpreting later. And so they will speak for a few minutes. But first, we will have a presentation for you. And the best person to possibly introduce Noha is the incredible Laura Cox. Now, Laura herself is not only, as I mentioned earlier, a dear friend who we became friends in Argentina. And that friendship has taken us now all over the world, both virtually and in person. And her Women for Solutions is such a genuine, committed, impactful organization that when we spoke about Ladies Fund and Dawood Global Foundation and Women for Solutions at our initial meetings, we spoke about potentially working together, but the more and more we've worked together and the more I've gotten to know Laura, not just as a friend, a colleague, but also as her organizational leader, the more I've been humbled and wowed by the impact that she's doing and her commitment to be here for us in Pakistan. So Laura, welcome, and we'd love to hear from you.
Thank you, Tara, and thank you, Samir. Tara, my admiration goes to you for all the work, the amazing work you are doing throughout not only Asia, but also Africa through the Ladies Fund. I think your impact is laudable and very to the heart of what you're doing. Samir as well. And I am very grateful to be here because we can expand everything there is about the caring economy. That is what Women for Solution is about. And our speaker today, Noha Hefry, a very good friend, a friend from COVID. We've never met in person, but we do so many things. She is part of our Women for Solution board. She is, as mentioned by Samir, CEO and founder of People of Impact, where she really creates impact in an amazing way because she has been in the private sector as a consultant working for McKinsey. For more than 20 years, she has an amazing experience in the workforce and how to create the link between what the UN brings and what a private sector brings. And Noha is the best person that can really bring that together and inspire us to create change. She is an award-winning multilingual leader for more than 20 years experience in communication and international affairs in the private sector and the UN, as I mentioned, an energetic self-starter with entrepreneurs mindset, a team builder able to navigate high-stress situations and achieve goals that really matter, not only for herself, but also as a professional. She is internationally recognized. And with that, my dear Noha, I would like you to share your wisdom with us, and looking forward to all of you to participate. Just to start with a super energy, we have in Women for Solutions something called the Women for Solutions posture. That is to have your shoulders back, your chin up, your eyes that twinkle with joy and determination, and always with a wide smile, because a smile will take us everywhere. And so with a super wide smile, Noha, the line is all yours.
Thank you so much, Tara and Laura, for the amazing introduction and for making this, event and platform available for women. It's such an honor to be able to contribute to this. And as Laura said, I'll be today talking about gender equality in the workplace. So I'll be sharing my screen in just a second. Okay. Sorry. Okay. All right. Okay. So basically, I would like to start by saying that, women over history have made a significant progress to achieve gender equality at work. Yet, we all know very well that they still earn less on average than men. They are underrepresented in multiple industries and senior positions, and this can be a much greater gap across specific sectors. And they are also disproportionately impacted by socioeconomic problems and inequalities. And we'll be elaborating on that shortly. So the big question here is, what's holding us women back from more progress? And how would we all benefit from a more gender equitable society and workplaces? So the objectives of my session is really to help us learn about the key definitions and drivers relating to gender equality, understanding the consequences of inequalities for companies, but also for the economic performance of countries, to help us understand the current context for gender equality, paying special attention to leadership positions in business and in public life. My presentation will also cover the structural barriers that contribute to the gender gap, and also what can we do about it? What are the key solutions and interventions, including actions, programs, and policies needed to create an enabling environment for women to thrive? So just to add a little bit about my background and why I'm interested and very passionate and honored to be here with you today is, as Laura rightly said, I've been 20 years in the field of international development, and a lot of my experience is focused on diversity and inclusion when I was in the private sector, but also I'm a UN Women consultant focused on women, economic empowerment, and partnerships. And besides that, I also work as part of a AI technology company that organizes and delivers, analytics to measure the progress on an organization's D&I journey, diversity and inclusion journey. So I'm extremely passionate about that, and this passion also led me not only to support different women organizations, but to co-found She is Arab, a dedicated platform for Arab women addressing their underrepresentation. So in terms of my presentation today, it is divided into 6 parts. We'll start with key definitions, the current context, the strategic frameworks that govern gender equality, including the women empowerment principles. We'll talk about measuring and reporting and the role of different actors in advancing gender equality. And just before I start, I wanted to say that this is going to be a very interactive presentation. So I really look forward to your interaction. There will be a number of questions to contribute to, and please feel free to write your question all throughout the session in case you have any clarification or would like me to elaborate on any of the concepts that I'm sharing. So let's start with the key definitions around gender equality. And I want to start by asking everyone here, what do these terms mean to you and how are they different? Because having worked for UN Women and in consulting roles with the private sector on gender equality, I know that there's a lot of terms when it comes to this field, and some of them are listed here, including, gender equality. Sometimes we say parity, equity, balance, and we also talk about gender equality and women empowerment. And also, additional terms that are very interesting have to do with gender sensitive, gender responsive, and gender transformative plans or policies or actions. So I'd like to stop here for a moment and see if any of you can tell me, when you think of gender equality, the term, how would you define that in your own words? Okay. All right. So basically, many people might define gender equality in multiple ways. But really, when we refer to gender equality, we're really talking about equal rights, access to equal rights, to equal conditions, treatments, and opportunities for women to realize, both men and women, boys and girls, to realize their full potential, human rights, and dignity, and for contributing equally to the economic, social, cultural, and political development. So this is really what equality means. Let's take parity on the other hand. So parity is really a contributor to equality. But when we say gender parity, we're really looking here at a statistical measure that provides a numerical value of female to male or girl to boy ratio for indicators such as income or education. So when we look at that and we understand the difference, we realize automatically that equality can only be achieved if we can reach parity and good ratios, and in different relating to different areas like education, health, or other rights. Now, if we look at equity, the word equity, and it's very close to equality because it does have to do with guaranteeing equal rights. But equity is really about how are we going to ensure fairness in the treatment of men and women according to their needs. So it's not just about guaranteeing equal rights, but it's also looking at where a certain gender is at this point in time. What are their needs right now? They may include equal treatment or treatment that is different, but is considered equivalent in terms of rights, benefits, obligations, and opportunities. So we move on now to gender balance. And here again, this is a term that is often used describing, women representation in parliaments or in the workforce or in leadership. So again, when we talk about gender balance, we're really looking about equal participation of men and women in all areas of work or in a program or a country. So it really looks at the numbers. It's, again, a quantitative measure whereby we say there is equal representation in a given board, in a given society or organization. So this is very interesting because a lot of people confuse equality, equity, and balance. But the reality is the term gender equality really encapsulates both the quantitative measures to measure progress in terms of the advancement of women, and it also takes into account the qualitative measures. And overall, it is really about equal opportunity, equal access to rights for both men, women, girls, and boys. So I hope that this helps clarify many of the terms that are often used when we're talking about gender equality and women empowerment. Now we move to the word women empowerment or the term women empowerment. So if we already know that gender equality is about equal access to rights and opportunities, then what is empowerment really? So empowerment is a much broader term that goes beyond just equal access to rights. And it's about increasing the personal, political, social, economic strength of women so that they can control their own destiny. So it's not just about giving them equal access, but also enabling them, building their capacity to be able to have control over the choices and the decisions that they make. It's also giving them control over equal access to resources or opportunities. It's giving them agency to use these rights and capabilities, resources and opportunities so that they can make strategic choices and decisions that can enable them to be equal partners in a given society. So empowerment really is about enabling women to rise, to control their own destiny, choices, and be equal partners in economic and political or any other institutions or opportunities that they have. Now, interestingly enough, there are other terms that come into play when we refer to policies or programs or actions. And these are three terms that are very important in my mind, because they also show you the progression of an organization in terms of how developed it is when it comes to advancing gender equality. So the first term is really referring to a policy or a program as gender sensitive. And here, it's really about, when we say gender sensitive, it's about looking at have we as an organization or a team taken gender and gender equality, into consideration in our planning and policy design efforts and program design efforts. So gender sensitive is about taking gender into consideration in planning and programming. Now, gender responsive takes us an additional step forward. So gender responsive is that, not only we have taken gender into consideration by looking at how gender sensitive a policy or a program will be, but the actions and the programs we develop respond to specific gender equality challenges or specific gender-related issues or problems. So we're not just being sensitive, we're taking action. Whatever action we're taking will respond to a given challenge. Now, gender transformative goes even beyond that. So it goes from, we not only have taken gender into consideration and developed actions that can respond effectively to any problems or challenges, but these actions, they are a transformative response. They have a systemic effect, a long-term effect, a sustainable effect, and they will transform communities or societies. So I want to pause really here and see if anyone has any questions. Okay. So, okay, I'll move on since there are no questions, and I will talk now about the current context for gender equality. So we all know that women's leadership matters. And we've seen this very clearly recently in the COVID-19 pandemic as it erupted. We've seen these amazing women leaders from Germany, from Taiwan, from New Zealand, Iceland, Norway, Denmark, and even Ethiopia, whereby they have stepped up to lead and manage their countries during these crises. And they have done so very effectively, containing the situation. But not only that, they have done that with empathy. They have done that with care and with resilience. And that, in turn, will transform their societies into resilient and strong communities. So it's very important to recognize and take a moment to reflect and acknowledge, women's leadership. And these are really not the only women. However, despite the fact that we have so many women leaders who are leading the way, breaking norms, achieving success, and after success, women still face significant inequalities. And these inequalities can be divided when we talk about economic empowerment, into social economic inequalities, workforce inequalities, and leadership inequalities. So when we look at the socio-economic inequalities or gender gap, we know that, 2/3 of all children denied schools around the world are girls. So today, 2/3 of children do not access education, unfortunately. 60% of the world's chronically hungry are women and girls. And, the number for chronic hunger, if you were thinking, what is the 60%, I know that it's 690 million people who go to bed hungry each night. So 60% of that number is a significant number in terms of inequality. And we also have 75% of the world's 876 million illiterate adults as women. So again, women could be left behind if we do not address these inequalities. So now, since the topic of today is about gender equality in the workplace, let's look at some of the numbers relating to the workforce inequalities. So first, it's important to know that women constitute or make up 75% of the world's workforce. And in this global pandemic and before it, they make up 70% of the global healthcare. However, having said that, in the healthcare sector, only 25% of these 70 are in senior management. And from the total workforce, we only have 20% of women on boards. And the numbers continue. If we look at how much money women earn, they earn 23% less than men. And only 10% of the world's income is earned by women. 42% of the women make up the informal economy or sector. And 55% are in the service sector. And what that means is that they are clearly amongst the segment of society that is disproportionately impacted, particularly during the pandemic, where we know that the service sector and informal sectors have been hardly hit, and many people have lost tremendous amount of jobs. Now, on the leadership level, I already mentioned 20% is the number of women on boards globally, but also, if we look at leadership in the public sector, we only have 12 heads of government around the world today, and 11 of these 12 are heads of states. And this is an improvement from previous years. Yet, when we're looking at a world that has more than 200 countries, this is a very small number. So also when we look at parliamentarians, 24.9% and 8% of cabinet ministers, and only 46 countries in the UN have met the UN target of 30% female decision makers. So when we look at this picture, it's very important to recognize that the inequalities are significant and action is required. I also want to look at women's access to funding, and particularly women entrepreneurs. And here, if we look at what's happening, women's share of venture capitalist funding stands at only 4.3%. And, this is an extremely low percentage. And it is critical to address this gap, the founders gap, which means that women-led business are getting the least amount of funding in the entrepreneurship ecosystem. To address this, we need more diversity amongst VCs. So 89% of the VCs are men. So we need more women investors. We need more diverse representation to ensure that women's needs and equal opportunities are guaranteed. So having painted this picture, giving us more clarity, it is important to recognize that these numbers are not new, that before COVID-19, these inequalities were already there. And they have only regressed. Any progress on the UN Sustainable Development Goals has gone backwards, particularly on socioeconomic goals and targets. So it is really time for us to recognize that not only women make up half of the world's population, they are half of humanity, they are half of society, and they should make up half of our workplaces and have equal access to opportunities, if not more. And in order to do that, we need a shift in mindsets. We need to look at gender equality and parity as an economic and strategic opportunity, and no longer as a moral and social issues or an issue that women have to tackle, or HR in a company has to tackle. If we look at it strategically as an economic opportunity, we will find that organizations, including businesses, will start to make bold commitments. So here, the numbers are important. It is really disheartening to see the World Economic Forum numbers saying that it will take us 257 years to achieve economic gender parity as of 2020. And this is 10 generations of women. So, I challenge everyone to really reflect on what kind of bold commitments can we take in order to reduce this length of time. Because it is inconceivable that in our day and age, and with all the advancements as humanity that we have realized technologically and in other areas, that we are unable to meet minimum commitments for gender equality. And to attach a dollar figure to this number, it's very important to look at the impact of achieving economic gender parity. And McKinsey actually tells us that, the 26% of GDP, which is 28 trillion US dollars, can be added to the economy if we were to achieve economic gender parity between men and women. So again, for all the organizations or leaders who do not see a business case for gender equality and women empowerment, I challenge them to look at these numbers and reflect on it as an opportunity. And also to recognize that women's rights are human rights. It is not just a nice thing to do on the side of business. And again, I repeat, a social or a moral issue to tackle, but an economic and strategic priority for every organization and business. So having finished, painting really the picture, about, where are we with gender equality globally? What are the different terms? What are the types of inequalities that exist? Just to consolidate this thinking in our mind, I'd like to share a video from the ILO when they launched an initiative called basically the Centennial Initiative. And this video will show you where we are and where we need to go as organizations.
All around the world, women want to work and get paid for it, and the majority of men agree. But there's a gap between women's aspirations and the realities of the labor market. Women are less likely to participate in the labor market. They face lower chances of finding a job. They're paid less than men, more likely to be in involuntary part-time work, and they're subject to discrimination in the workplace. Traditional gender roles are slow to change. In every country, women do at least twice as much housework and care work at home than men, unpaid. When paid and unpaid work is combined, women work longer days than men. Around the world, women and men agree. Balancing work and family responsibilities, including lack of access to affordable care services, is the major challenge to women at work. The opportunity? Recognizing, rewarding, reducing and redistributing care work, and creating more decent care jobs for women and men. More than 1 of every 3 women worldwide has experienced physical or sexual violence. Violence against women does not only have physical, emotional, and psychological costs, it has a significant impact on national economies. Violence, harassment, and discrimination can prevent women from entering and staying in the job market, particularly in male-dominated fields. The global pay gap between men and women is estimated at 23%. In some countries, women earn just 60% of what men earn for an hour of the same work. Differences in education, experience, age, and career breaks cannot entirely explain why. The significant difference is discrimination against women, direct or indirect. The Women at Work Centenary and the Future of Work Centenary initiatives provide an opportunity not only to make the obstacles to decent work for women visible, but to also spell out the action needed to overcome them. The deliberate and bold choices we make will ensure a future of work with gender equality at its heart. Major pathways towards achieving gender equality and decent work include expanding the provision of accessible and high-quality care services and creating decent jobs in the care economy. Laws and mechanisms to ensure equal pay for work of equal value, and extend social protection coverage. Ending violence and harassment in the world of work, and macroeconomic policies that foster job riches and address structural gender inequalities. This transformation is essential if we want to see gender equality at the heart of the 2030 Sustainable Development Agenda and make decent work for women and men a reality.
So thank you so much, everyone. I just figured out from a technology standpoint how I can access your answers to the earlier question. So I want to acknowledge a couple of definitions that came through. And one is from Sabrine Haider, who says, increasing gender equality by paying equally to both men and women. And yes, absolutely. The pay gap is significant and is something that requires immediate action. And as again, the statistic is 23%. Women are earning 23% less than men. So this will take a bold commitment from organizations to review their equal pay policies and from countries to issue the required policies to provide an enabling policy environment that can encourage organizations to implement that. And Sabrine is also saying, encouraging the use of mentors, absolutely, for women empowerment. Never assume one person is better than another based on their gender. Always evaluate, interview, observe each candidate, absolutely eliminating discrimination in hiring, promotion, and in any work processes is going to be critically important to ensure that everyone has equal rights at work. Looking out for people within your staff with the skills to coach, guide, and support women. Absolutely, mentorship and sponsorship is a key criteria for success of organizations trying to advance gender equality. Mentorship, great. And last but not least, speaking at career seminars and making decisions. So I love really all the points that have been made by Cian, and I believe all of them are relevant. I know also that Omolara was saying that gender equality refers to male and female genders being at par with no discrimination. 100%. This is the right, basically, definition. So thank you for sharing that. And Fiza Yasmin from Pakistan, who says, access to equal economic opportunities. And she's saying talk more about them. So yes, economic opportunities we will continue to cover, and this includes, access to social protection, to equal pay, policies that provide women with more support on childcare. So let's continue, and hopefully I will cover more on economic empowerment. All right, thank you for the interaction, everyone. And there is one more comment I'd like to acknowledge from Ambreen about the power and the impact of support groups. And yes, I think that support groups, women organizations, networks are the way forward to provide women with the support they need in order to navigate challenges that they confront in their working and leadership journey. And it does bring awareness. Ambreen, I totally agree. Great insights, everyone. In the interest of time, I'll just now proceed. So now that we've seen the reality and the context, it's important to look at the strategic framework. So what do we do about it? What is the direction? How should it look like? And here, especially, as we plan our way forward post-COVID, it's important to recognize that gender mainstreaming and putting women at the heart of recovery efforts is going to be critical. They need to be in leadership at the decision-making tables and shaping the way forward. All the needs of women and girls should be mainstreamed in policies, planning, budgeting, and programs. So some people always ask me, what would be your top 3 things around, the role of organizations, in driving gender equality? And I say, for me, it's really about creating an enabling business environment. It's about promoting women-owned businesses, even if you're a larger company. So, buying from the women, and gender inclusive entrepreneurship, and then advancing gender inclusive business cultures and work environments. And you can do that by implementing also the women empowerment principles of the UN. So basically, if I can sum it up strategically, it's about planning for women with gender sensitive planning and budgeting, buying from women, which is, making sure we have in our supplier base and partner base women-led businesses or women from communities that we can procure raw materials from if we have supply chains as such, and that we invest in women, supporting women entrepreneurs and advancing communities. So let me ask you, before I continue, how many of you here are familiar with the women empowerment principles of the UN? If you can draft it in the comments. Okay, so as we wait for the comments, I'll just get started, but would be very interesting to see how many people know the WEPs or have worked with it or other. Okay, so let's start with talking about the Women Empowerment Principles, or the WEPs. And, this is a set of 7 principles that provide guidance for companies and opportunities for entrepreneurs to consider how to empower or advance gender equality. So having said that, these principles tackle a number of areas, which is leadership, workplace, marketplace, community, and advocacy. So the first principle is leadership promotes gender equality. The second is about equal opportunity, inclusion, and non-discrimination. The third is to guarantee health, safety, and freedom from violence, education and training to develop women, enterprise development, supply chain and marketing practices, community leadership and engagement, and then being transparent about what we do, measuring and reporting. So if we really look at that, the leadership part requires bold, aspirational, and committed leaders who want to truly, strategically change the game and the equation on gender equality at work. So this is very important. We need more of these male champions, viewing that they constitute the majority of leaders today, to take on the onus and the commitment to make a difference for women at work, and to ensure inclusive workplaces that do not discriminate, whether as women, between men or women. So we also don't want to really have men be behind. We need to really work on inclusion and being inclusive of all genders. Now, in the workplace, the WEPS really looks at employee health and well-being and safety, and gender equality, of course, by giving equal access to the rights. In the marketplace, we're really looking at our practices in the supply chain. Are we gender sensitive, taking into account the needs of women? Are we supporting women entrepreneurs? And in terms of marketing practices, and this is very interesting, and I was fortunate to work on it, on a project relating to ethical marketing, and to be part of contributing to the UN Women Unstereotype Alliance launch in the UAE. And I would say here that when a company looks at how gender sensitive or responsive its marketing practices are, they will ensure that they eliminate basically stereotypes in advertising. They will also make sure that they hire marketing companies that put women first, that have equal representation, or at least are thinking about that. And yes, absolutely, the women empowerment principles of the UN were developed by the UN Global Compact and UN Women, and they are informed by real life business practice, as Educate a Girl has rightly written now in the comments. Thank you for that. All right. So you may ask, okay, the UN has all these frameworks, and the WEPS is one of them, and how do we really get started with implementation? So here, I would say, again, on the leadership side, we need a CEO's commitment, or CEO, or the likes of a CEO, to be committed. We need champions in the company, women and men, who are willing to advance this agenda and realize progress on it. And then what we do next is we start by assessing current progress using the WEPS gender gap analysis tool. And what I'll do is I'll very quickly share a video that explains what this tool is all about.
Investing in women and girls is key to advancing sustainable development. If women and men participated equally, the world economy could gain $28 trillion by 2025. The research is clear. Gender equality is an enormous opportunity for businesses to improve their own performance. Companies with one woman in senior management tend to see significantly higher annual performance. By closing gender gaps, companies benefit through increased productivity and higher retention. Investors are increasingly looking at the gender equality performance of companies as an indicator for potential growth. Beyond advancing gender equality and women's empowerment internally, companies can impact all areas of society and be a leader in creating lasting, positive change. Despite this opportunity, many social, economic, and legal barriers for women still exist, preventing them from entering the workforce, progressing in their careers, and growing their businesses. In fact, at the current rate of change, it will take more than 100 years to achieve gender equality. So how can your company accelerate the pace of change? Introducing the WEPS Gender Gap Analysis Tool. It's a self-assessment tool that improves your company's ability to assess current gender equality policies and programs and identify gaps and opportunities for improvement. The WEPS tool is based on the Women's Empowerment Principles, a holistic guidance to businesses on empowering women everywhere, in the workplace, marketplace, and community. More than 190 companies worldwide contributed to its design process. The WEPS Gender Gap Analysis tool allows companies everywhere to understand best practices, existing resources, and international standards. driving gender inclusiveness and women's empowerment. The WEPS tool is free, user-friendly, and strictly confidential. By using the WEPS Gender Gap Analysis tool, your company can assess its strategic approach to gender equality, identify gaps and opportunities for continuous improvement, learn global gender equality best practices, benchmark against peers and industry standards, contribute to the Sustainable Development Goals of the United Nations, and turn the global goals into local business. Are you ready to lead the change? Don't get left behind. Invest.
So yes, so this is the starting point really for evaluating where a company is at. As mentioned in the video, the WEPS Gender Gap Analysis tool is free. It's available online on the website of the WEPS. If you type in Google WEPS Gender Gap Analysis tool, it will automatically come up. And it's a very good way because not only gives you the metrics against the 7 principles of where your company is, but also it recommends key areas of interventions that are a priority for your organization. So I would say once you have the commitment of your CEO, you have identified a group of champions who can drive this internally. You know, the starting point is to have a baseline to understand where you are in your journey. Second is to develop an action plan. So now that you know where you are, what's the data, what is the metrics, how much progress, how well are we doing, what are the areas that we need, opportunity areas that we need to address, it is important now to develop an action plan and to set clear targets to build, more inclusive business, and also looking all the way down to your supply chain. It's also, along this process, besides doing the assessment, the action plan, and starting to implement this, it's important to look at your internal capacity. So, does your organization have the resources, financial and human, and the technical expertise to promote gender equality and women empowerment across your value chain? So again, that will enable you to determine, who will lead this effort and how and to what extent, and what can we do over what lengths of time, balancing really the short, the medium, and the long term. And, laying the ground for deeper supply chain programs like sourcing, for example, from women farmers, or sourcing from women entrepreneurs, services and products, or others, and looking at how responsible is our supply chain, and looking at how much gender is mainstreamed into the planning, budgeting, and management of that supply chain, ensuring full respect for human rights of all, really. And lastly, it is about measuring and reporting progress against your action plan and key indicators that you have set for yourself. And this is really a very, high-level summary of the women empowerment principles. And if you do have any questions, please feel free to put them in the comments, or to share your reflections as well. Okay, so I'll move on to talk about measurement and reporting. And what I wanted to say, as a consulting, is that, I know that so many people and have the greatest intention, to advance gender equality and to help and support women and empower them. And many organizations have, over the last few years, really taken many steps to increase women's representation in the workplace, and, in leadership within their own companies, etc. They have done efforts to review their pay. We know that governments as well are also having this great momentum with policies being reformed around the world to enable women. However, it's very important to recognize two things. So similar to in the environmental sustainability field, how we have a lot of greenwashing, which is about, companies really using the environmental sustainability cause, for good marketing, but, making claims that are not always correct. And really, again, in the gender equality field, the same is important to consider. How can we not be just ticking boxes? How can we not be, paying lip service to this momentum around gender equality that is happening all around the world? How can we be authentic and genuine about our efforts? And the only answer to that is really about sustainable actions that lead to transformative change, and the way we can demonstrate that, good intention and commitments are translated into action and are positively impacting the women is by actually measuring, by developing KPIs and indicators that matter. So I'd like to share, a top line summary of, the type of indicators that would help move the needle on gender equality at work. So, the first one is about the percentage of women in senior leadership. And most recently, after the pandemic broke out, the UN Global Compact has established, along with UN Women, a minimum standard of 30% representation of women in senior leadership. And there has been a lot of discussion around achieving gender balance, which means 50% representation in the workforce. Now that, can differ from one industry to the other, and also can be impacted by the availability of a talent pipeline in certain sectors. But at the end, it is believed that the minimum standard for women's representation in senior leadership should stand at 30%. It's also important to look at how we increase representation on board. It is 20%, the percentage of women on boards globally. But again, every context is different. The importance is to look at it from a gender sensitive lens and see, what do we need to do to get there and to achieve better numbers and report these with a lot of transparency. Another indicator is the ratio of the basic salary and remuneration of women to men for each employee category by significant location of operation, and this is to measure equal pay. Another thing is about equal opportunities. The percentage of new hires who are women, the percentage of women being promoted, the retention rates, of employees that took parental leave, broken down by sex, male or female. And then how safe and inclusive are our workplaces? Do we have confidential grievance, mechanisms where people can bring, their complaints about what they don't see as adhering to our code of conduct or practices, or what constitutes discrimination or harassment? So again, all of these are measures that a organization or company is looking at a gender sensitive, gender responsive, and in some cases transformative approach to gender equality. The other indicators have to do with equal opportunity. So looking at percentages of women in traditionally underrepresented role or male-dominated sectors. Training and development. How much has the company invested in employee development and the average hours of trainings received to develop, a future leadership pipeline, or to run, unconscious bias training, gender intelligence training, and others. Gender responsive procurement, the percentage of procurement of the company spent with women-owned businesses, or with businesses, if they are not women-led, that have a strong commitment to gender equality. the percentage of workers in the supply chain that are receiving a wage. You know, again, I talked about the marketing earlier, but it's about, you know, ethical, responsible marketing embedded into corporate policies and eliminating gender stereotypes. When we design products, one indicator is, you know, our commitment to integrate inclusive gender consideration into design and delivery. And last but not least, you know, how are we ensuring as an organization that we play our part in leaving no one behind? And that is women in communities. So looking at the percentage of financial or pro bono support for gender equality programs. So these, you know, these set of indicators really tackle systemic barriers for women empowerment. And, you know, they are not standard across industries or sectors and very dependent on the size of the company, but they provide a good guidance to what kind of areas should we be looking at in line with the women empowerment principles. And, you know, what I want to say before, you know, moving on from the reporting, you know, is, you know, a lot of organizations can say we're committed to gender equality, but how do you translate that into action? You know, how are we turning this beautiful commitment and PR to actual actions that are transformative, that drive women forward? This is what we need to see in order to reduce the 257 years that the WEF talks about, you know? So I really urge all of you here, whether you are from a women organization or an entrepreneur, or you work for a company or part of a public sector entity, you know, to champion this type of work within your company and organization, because this is what can truly make a difference. And I wanted to see, you know, if you can write in the comments as well, how do you go about measurement in your own organization? Are any of you measuring? Yes.
Hi, everyone. I think that Noha's got a lot of digital stuff going on at the moment, and she's sorting it for you all. But
I'm here.
Okay, good, Noha. Welcome back.
I sincerely apologize. I had a family interruption. So as a woman, you know, experiencing firsthand the situation. So, hello? Yeah. So, so I wanted to, I can't see how many of you are doing measurement in your organizations, but I wanted to say that, you know, for me, you know, it's a very important thing to consider if you're not already doing it. So if we look now at the role of different actors, you know, there are key actions for businesses, you know, and as we discussed, and many of you as well have contributed very positively in the chat, we need, you know, policies for parental leave, flexible working, hiring, promotion, equal pay. We need to be building skills and developing the capacity of the future leaders. We need to be creating really inclusive workplaces and cultures within organizations. We need programs that help, you know, alleviate you know, what women go through in terms of their, you know, balancing work and life and childcare, and, you know, enable women who have taken a career break to return to work. And there are many programs coming up around the world in that context, particularly in the global multinationals. We need to offer mental health support. As discussed, you know, mental health for a very long time has been stigmatized. as an issue. Not many people will feel comfortable talking to their manager about their mental state. And therefore, it's critically important, that companies and organizations start to look at mental health, particularly that of women and their needs in that area, as a strategic priority, something that they would be willing to invest in. Because we all know too well that, why most women or men even are not retained, results from, a mental state, right, of not liking a certain culture or feeling toxicity or a negative work environment. And competitive environments also create that pressure on mental health. So we really need to look at this as something to tackle. Most people also, in a survey said that they leave companies because of difficult managers that they report to. So people, again, need all the support, and particularly in this pandemic when everyone is working remotely, how do we really offer the support to both men and women in that area? Looking at the minimum representation of 30%, 50% in workforce, promoting women-owned businesses, supporting the decent work and supply chains as iterated in the WEPs, empowering women in the community, but also, supporting women in STEM. And we know, again, from the pandemic that they are the enablers of an innovative future. So how can we retain them when they join the workforce? How can we ensure that, so many women are graduating from science majors? Are we tapping into their full potential? Are we capturing and retaining them into the labor force? Or are we losing that pipeline of talent who can, really support us into the future through science and technology? And engineering and math. So again, I think a big focus on that would be critically important. In the pandemic, we've seen remote working after, being something that we all thrive to get our companies and organizations to commit to. The pandemic really imposed it, and it should continue, because it should continue beyond the pandemic, even if it's resolved, so that we can all continue to try and balance our care and work responsibilities. I did talk about women in STEM, and again, that would guarantee inclusive innovation that takes the needs of women into account. So it's not only about enabling women in STEM, as I mentioned earlier, but the reason we would want to do so is to ensure that, solutions being designed for the future and impacting the future of people and including women, take women's needs into account. And therefore, again, the need for STEM talent. And as I said earlier, the need for women investors, the need for education, absolutely, Shazia. These are all critical components and for driving gender equality. So before I move on to talk about unpaid work, I want to go to Sabrine's question. And she says, give training to raise awareness and promote fair behavior, provide childcare facilities, family-friendly policies, absolutely. Shine a spotlight on successful women, 100%, highlighting role models, both internally and through media, establish policies for fair pay, work-life balance. Absolutely. I couldn't agree more with all the points that you have included. As for Shazia's question about education, I think that, education is the unlock for all of this. We cannot move forward without education. And I think it's one of the most important sustainable development goals that can resolve, poverty, hunger, even gender equality, equal participation, access to rights. All of this is critically unlocked by education. And I will now take a moment to talk about, tackling unpaid care work.
Unpaid care work is the kind of work that people do in taking care of each other and building up each other's capabilities. In particular, very young children, people who are sick, need a pretty significant amount of attention and care. And very often it is women who do this kind of work. The main characteristic of unpaid work is that it's not directly paid or remunerated. Now, in theory, this kind of work should be counted as part of GDP. For example, if you take a country like Argentina, the calculations that were done by feminist economists and statisticians give us a figure of about 7% of GDP. And in a much less developed country like Tanzania, it was even seen to be a much higher figure, like 63%. One study included also a case study of Switzerland. What was found out was if you added the unpaid care work that is done in Switzerland and you value it, it's almost as big as the banking and insurance industry in Switzerland. But to really value this work, I think what is really important is to appreciate its significance for any society or economy. So this work is really what makes the society and the economy tick. In many ways, this kind of work can be seen as the solid foundation on which official industries and services and economies and schools and universities sit. Without this kind of work, it would be very difficult to even think of a society that can function. One kind of universal fact seems to be that in nearly all human societies, it is often upon women this kind of work falls. What we say, it's highly feminized. We have some data showed that something like 75% of all unpaid care work is carried out by women and girls. So this is a very unequal distribution between men and women. In fact, it does penalize women, because taking on the bulk of this work often carries a penalty in terms of not being able to have a full-time job with a decent wage, not being able to accumulate a pension, not getting all of the benefits that come from formal sector employment. So the penalties are many, even though the benefits to society are huge. Redistributing care is really, really critical. So that really involves a rethinking and redoing of our kind of social relationships. States can go a long way in terms of making sure that there are good quality public services, childcare services, but also you try and change your expectations and social norms so that women and men can share those responsibilities more equally. So with more policies, you also increase the social expectation that more can be done to redistribute the work and not to just say this is a private matter and it's for families to deal with, which very often falls on women and girls. Unpaid.
So I hope that you found, this video to be interesting, and a lot of us, when there's discussions around work, we really don't know what this entails. But the reality is, societies are changing, the world is changing, and we need, shared, responsibility between men and women in terms of childcare, if we wanted to have that enabling and supporting environment. And we also need to account, economically for that contribution that women are really making. So we move on to really the role of women organizations or network. And I think businesses, really need to continue, and all of us, they really need to strengthen women's network to enable them to provide enhanced support to women. They need to ensure that women networks become more centered on action, with monitoring and evaluation really feeding into global targets and indicators relating to Sustainable Development Goal 5, gender equality. We need to build capacity and share, like in this session, knowledge and training and toolkits, methodologies in order to advance the field. Focus really should be on unemployment. As I mentioned, many women have been impacted as a result of the pandemic. Health and mental health are key, and entrepreneurship. And obviously, very much so focusing on developing the future generation of talent. And all of these things really are core to recovery. I know many of you mentioned this earlier in the comments you've been sharing, and I've been loving the interaction of everyone. It's very encouraging. But yes, we need to celebrate and grow women, and we need to advance agency and voice for representation. So when we talk about, highlighting role models or giving exposure, or, really sharing women's stories and being sensitive about gender equality in communications, capturing women's voices in those communications equally, and and all of these things. I just really, as someone who created an entire enterprise that was focused on voice and representation, I want to say that, it has a direct correlation to leadership representation. It's not just about inspiration and sharing of achievements or recognizing women. In fact, the more we highlight those role models, we give them exposure, their stories are out there, maybe, they get more opportunities to join leadership roles, board roles, or even even in more junior positions, get more visibility about their talents that have been shared by other women. And, getting that third party endorsement is very important. So, I do encourage everyone, if you know a woman that you think is doing amazing things or is amazing as a mother, as a professional or a leader in the private public sector, please highlight these women. And I think our society for a very long time has looked at role models purely from an achievement in the business sense. But we really also need to look at human values, women of determination, of courage. A mother who is raising her children is a wonderful role model as well. So again, highlighting them, giving them exposure to the amazing things they are contributing to our society will only build more inclusive society. And for leadership and representation, obviously, again, highlighting and telling the stories of all the women at work, providing mentorship and also peer-to-peer support. And mentorship is important, not only, from senior women to others, but also peer-to-peer. And more than that, really, is, sponsorship. So, taking a chance, even if you're not 100% sure of the capabilities of someone else, to actually open doors and give them opportunities or introduce them to others who can give them opportunities. So sponsorship is going to be critical to get women to the next level in their leadership journey. So again, a question for you is really, who is your role model and why? I mean, today we talked about, heads of governments, like in New Zealand and all of that. We talked about women at work. I just discussed how, for me, my mother is one of my role models. And, we have to celebrate people on the basis of value. So I'd love to know also your reflection on that, because, women's leadership, whether at work or in society or at home, is really about empathy and about all of us women supporting each other to grow and to thrive and to bridge these enormous, gaps across the spectrum. So I'd love to hear if anyone wants to share who their role model is and why. Okay, and then as I mentioned, to build on the idea of women supporting women, when I talk about that, I don't just mean, giving each other exposure or telling each other stories, but economically empowering each other. And basically, and what I mean by that is, if you run a consulting business and you have a friend who's running a consulting business, pitch together, share resources, pool the money, the capital, create caring alliances and partnerships that can be economically rewarding for both of you. So this is what I mean by support, and also supporting with the other things, mentorship, sponsorship, and visibility and exposure. Champion gender equality, make your voice heard. If you work in a company and you think they need to start this journey, take it into your own hands to actually, drive this change. Nobody's going to do it for us. We need to do it for ourselves, and together is always better. The other thing is really, transforming leadership mindsets, by advancing our, key, special, unique characteristics about being a woman. We are more empathetic, authentic, and decision-making today, in today's world with pandemics and major crisis, requires that we tap into this. So please make your voice heard. If you sit in a senior management team or a leadership team, or you're still, building your career, again, what is the worst that can happen if you express a different opinion than everyone else and that opinion may not be accepted, but you at least have tried to transform minds and to drive more empathy around a very competitive and profit or commercially oriented private sector. So again, women's voice is important. It doesn't only provide new, innovative, and amazing ideas, but also it brings the empathy and the authenticity to different approaches. Basically, encouraging the procurement from women and learning and unlearning. I mean, all of us, continuously also being honest with ourselves about the mindset that we need in order to empower other women or to empower ourselves. What skills do we need to continuously build in order to continue, adding value and growing in our leadership journey? How can we use downtimes in our journeys to build our skills or to develop ourselves for the next step in our life? So I'll stop it here and ask if any of you would have questions. But really, this is an opportune time to turn this challenge of gender equality into a real opportunity. And we can only do that through solidarity, partnership, and building a more inclusive world where women and men are equal partners. And I look forward, to stay in contact with you. And here are my contacts in case that anybody would like to reach out and continue this wonderful conversation that we started. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Noha, for this wonderful insight on such an important topic. Women working in the workplace need this sort of guidance and insight and sisterhood that you're providing. And that applies all over the world, and certainly for those of us in Pakistan, and as you pointed out, the many, many Ladies Fund members in Nigeria. So we wanted to begin by thanking you, and of course, the amazing Laura Koch and Women for Solutions for bringing you to the Ladies Fund world today. We also want to thank our incredible members and community and their great engagement. Some of you saw comments, some are privately emailing you, some have been WhatsApping us, and it's been overwhelming, the love and response and appreciation that people are sharing for you. We even have comments, what a wonderful human being you are, coming from our members, including Khadija Osman in Lahore, from Ladies Fund Lahore. We have also great thanks to give to Samir Dosal and the Canada Pakistan Business Council and their partnership and their community being a part of this, the Federation and their wonderful community all being a part of this, and of course, ConnectHear. ConnectHear, we want to just invite Alia to join us for a few minutes to say a few words, and then we'll close with the survey and other details of next steps. So Alia, can you come join us on behalf of ConnectHear? We can't hear you, Alia.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. Hello, everyone. So my name is Alia Afzal, and I work as a sign language trainer and interpreter at ConnectHear. So basically, ConnectHear works for inclusivity for deaf in Pakistan. Basically, we work on different events and programs, workshops to be inclusive for deaf, so they can understand whatever is happening around them. And also we work on sign language literacy. We teach hearing individuals so they can communicate with deaf individuals very easily and smoothly. So if you guys want your events or programs to be inclusive, you can contact us. And also thank you very much, Ladies Fund, for including us, and thanks to our interpreters Maria and Riaz for interpreting this event for the deaf community. Thank you very much for inviting me.
Wonderful. Thank you so much, Alia, and of course, Azima and the entire team of ConnectHear, and today's interpreters were Maria Shaber and Riaz Ahmed. As it was a lengthy program, they shared the interpretation, and we appreciate both of them as well as the entire corporation. We also want to mention that this is a 5th of a 6-part series. So there'll be one more coming up next month in June. But in the meanwhile, each and every session has a survey. So not only are your next steps to contact Noha and become her best friend and learn and grow together, but also and to share it. Please, everyone, host a watch party on your Facebook pages, share on your WhatsApp, your other sharing mediums, your iMessage, your WhatsApp, your Messenger, and all the different ways you can share with your loved ones, but host a watch party. In addition to all of that, there is a survey, not just for this particular dynamic session, and we will absolutely share that here with you, but there's a survey for the previous 4 ones, which we will post again. And there's a WhatsApp group just for the community doing these 6 sessions. And so there's many, many ways to get involved. There's a conversation, there's a dialogue of these entire 6 sessions, plus after you complete watching all 6 sessions, which are permanently on Facebook, and completing all 6 surveys, you will be certified by Women for Solutions, which is a global certification. And so we encourage all our members and community members and all of you watching this to proceed with that. We cannot thank Women for Solutions and Noha enough for bringing this to us, and applauding you for your insight and your commitment and dedication for the betterment. As you said at the end, not only is women supporting women about bringing opportunities together, but it includes everything from pitching together to collaborating, brainstorming, seeing one success as the success of the other, and success can be twofold. So with 2 people pitch, the success can add up to more than 1 + 1 adding up to 2. It can add to 3, 4, 5, 6, just because the chain reaction of collaboration in that manner can just grow and grow. And while we encourage and are representing women supporting women, we also must again thank Samir Dosal and the Canada Pakistan Business Council for taking this entire event to new global heights, and of course, members of Ladies Fund Nigeria. Thank you all the best, and have a good rest of your day. Thank you.
Thank you so much.